Biggest sporting spectacle will captivate billions across the globe as football's finest nations battle for glory on the grandest stage of them all. From stunning goals and dramatic upsets to the stories, stars, and moments that will define this historic tournament, we've got you covered every step of the way. I'm Asuma Katauka, and this is the NewsX World FIFA World Cup special. The 2026 FIFA World Cup has officially begins today as co-hosts Mexico takes on South Africa at the iconic Estadio Azteca Stadium. The opening match launches the biggest tournament in football history, featuring a record 48 teams and 104 matches across North America. FIFA's President Gianni Infantino has urged critics to chill amid growing scrutiny over visa and travel issues ahead of the World Cup. His remarks come after a Somali referee and several team officials were denied U.S. entry, raising fresh questions about tournament logistics. The 2026 tournament will make history with opening celebrations staged in Mexico City, Toronto, and Los Angeles. Headlined by global stars including Shakira, the ceremonies reflect FIFA's ambition to turn the World Cup into an unprecedented entertainment spectacle. Iran's squad will be subject to strict border restrictions during the tournament, with players only permitted to cross from their Mexico base camp into the United States on the day before each match. The measures highlight the geopolitical tensions lingering over the World Cup. Now, the 2026 FIFA World Cup has officially kicked off at the historic Estadio Azteca, marking the inauguration of the biggest tournament in football history. The highly anticipated opening match sees co-hosts Mexico take on South Africa on their home turf, delivering a thrilling repeat of the memorable 2010 curtain raiser clash. This year's historic expanded 48-team format will dramatically change the tournament landscape. Football fans around the world will be treated to a 39-day feast of intense global competition. With a massive 104 matches played across 16 spectacular host cities in North America, the global stage is finally set, the waiting is over, and the greatest show on earth is underway. Now we welcome Mr. Chris Scudder. He's a British sports news broadcaster in England. And Mr. Chris Scudder is a highly experienced British broadcast journalist and sports news broadcaster. He's also an author of Underdogs and News Hounds, travelogue covering behind the scenes of almost 8 World Cups. Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Scudder, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World FIFA Cup.
Hello.
Hi. Now, the 2026 FIFA World Cup officially begins at the iconic Estadio Azteca, with Mexico facing South Africa in a repeat of 2010 opener. So what does it mean for Mexico to once again launch football's biggest tournament on home soil?
Well, it's very big. They don't forget, this is the third time that they have hosted the World Cup, way back in 1970, which I think for many people was the greatest World Cup of all. 1970, when the great Pelé won and Brazil won it for the third time, won the Jules Rimet Trophy, perhaps the greatest team of all time. That was 1970. Then in 1986 they had it again when the great Diego Maradona did his thing for Argentina, and now all these years later, 40 years later, they're having it again, co-hosting with the Americans and the Canadians. And as far as the national team goes, I guess there's a lot of pressure on them because, well, they don't expect to win the tournament. They will be expecting to go through to the knockout stages. It's 40 years since they got to the quarterfinals, but that's probably a bit beyond them, I have to say. But the Aztec is an iconic stadium, famous for the hand of God goal in the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal, Diego Maradona against England, and you know, I mean, Mexico will expect to go through. They've got a reasonable group. They've got South Africa, which is a repeat, as you say, of the first game back in 2010. That was a draw. I think Mexico, they expect to win this one. with their home advantage, and they got South Korea and Czechia, Czech Republic as well. So I think it would be a surprise if the Mexicans don't go through. And if they do that, it's possible they could face England in the Aztec Stadium in the second knockout round, which is maybe where it would come to an end for them. But yeah, it's a big thing for Mexico, and the passion of the supporters will be incredible, I think.
Yes, indeed, we'll be watching that. And now this is the largest World Cup in history, 48 teams, 104 matches, 16 host cities. So will the expanded format make the tournament more exciting, or also does it risk becoming too long and demanding?
We don't know yet. I mean, it's the first time we've had 48 teams, up from 32. That's a big difference. I think that what it means is there are more teams going through to the knockout stages, and by that token, I think maybe the group stages will not be as exciting because there's less jeopardy. I mean, there are 12 groups of 4 teams, and in 8 of those groups, 8 of the 12, 3 teams will go through. So only the bottom teams, the smaller ones, will go out. So I think, you know, once the teams have won one game each, they will probably rest some of their star players, and just, you know, knowing that all the big matches that have come in the knockout stages. So I'm not sure it's a good idea in terms of a spectacle. And some of the matches maybe not so attractive. We're not sure yet what the crowds are going to be like for those games. Gianni Infantino and Donald Trump have been saying it's a big sellout. I'm sure it will be for the big games, but when you've got little nations playing each other as well, maybe that won't be the case. But I fear there might be quite a lot of draws, quite negative in the group stage, and then when we get to the knockouts, it'll be much more exciting. And then, you know, you really see when the World Cup kicks in at that point.
Yes, that's true. And now, as the tournament finally gets underway, which storyline are you watching most closely? The battle among the favorites, the rise of potential underdogs, or the challenges created by this historic expansion?
Well, I think most of the neutral people will love to see an underdog do well. Of course, every nation wants to see their own team do well, but I think some of the smaller nations, that they get the romantic attachment from, and they hope for a shock. Like, for example, in the last World Cup, when we saw Saudi Arabia beating mighty Argentina very early on, and Argentina went on to win the tournament. So I think it's all about the big teams, really, the stars. I think everybody wants to see the big names, the Messis and the Ronaldos, and all the upcoming players. And everyone's trying to second guess who will win it. I personally think this will be quite an open tournament. Hard to predict, really, because there are a lot of teams on a fairly even keel towards the top end who can all beat each other. And you'll probably have a few surprises along the way. And those are the ones that get the headlines. But yeah, I mean, it's I think the favourites, France and Spain and Brazil and Argentina and England and Portugal, I think you'd expect to see them in the latter stages. But picking a winner, I think, with conditions being particularly difficult in this part of the world, I think it will be open. I think it's quite hard to call a winner.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Scudder, for sharing that insight. Please do stay with us as we'll come back to you. Now, the FIFA World Cup has always been a stage where underdogs rewrite history, and the 2026 edition could be no different, with the tournament expanding to 48 teams. A new generation of footballing outsiders is ready to challenge the traditional giants. Among the tournament's new hounds are debutants Uzbekistan, Jordan, Curacao, and Cabo Verde, all making historic first appearances on football's biggest stage. Uzbekistan arrives with rising star Abduqodir Kusakunov, while Curacao becomes the smallest nation ever to qualify for a World Cup. As for the dark horses, Norway tops many experts' lists, led by Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard. The Scandinavians are back at the World Cup for the first time since 1998. Japan, Colombia, Ecuador, and Turkey are also being tipped to spring major surprises thanks to their tactical discipline and exciting young talent. Speaking of young stars, all eyes will be on Spain's teenage sensation Lamine Yamal, Turkey's Arda Güler, Argentina's Nico Paz, and Brazil's Endrick who are expected to announce themselves on the global stage. If World Cup history has taught us anything, it's that shocks are guaranteed, and 2026 may produce some of the biggest yet. Now we welcome back Mr. Chris Scudder. He is a highly experienced British broadcast journalist as well as sports news broadcaster and author of Underdogs and News Sounds, travelogue covering behind the scenes of almost 8 World Cups. Thank you very much, Mr. Scudder, for staying with us. Now, as we were talking about the underdogs, and you did mention that, it's exciting, and you mentioned about the Saudi Arabia beating Argentina early last time. Every World Cup produces a surprise story, from Morocco in 2022 to Croatia's run to the final in 2018. Which nation do you believe is best positioned to become the breakout team of 2026?
Oh, very difficult question that. It's hard to say where the shocks will come, but I think the conditions will probably play a part in that, where it levels the playing field. I was watching the England game last night, and they played in Orlando against Costa Rica. England were much too strong for them, but it was very warm, it's very wet as well. So I think at any given time we might get something unusual happening in this World Cup. But if you were asking me who's capable of springing a surprise, you gave a list in your link there, and I think that's quite an accurate one. I think Japan have shown that they can beat any of the top teams. They beat England recently. They beat Brazil as well in the not too distant past. Ecuador are a kind of outlier there. Interesting that the South American teams, whenever the World Cup has been played in North America, and I include Mexico in that, it's been won by South American teams. So Brazil twice, the last time it was in the USA, plus once in Mexico, and Argentina also won there. So I wonder whether Ecuador might have a say, Colombia possibly as well. A little bit unpredictable, these teams, but they will have a lot of support. I can say that definitely. I think, I've thought this for a long time, that the African nations are getting closer slowly to really breaking the European and South American stranglehold. We saw it with Morocco in the last World Cup in Qatar, when they got to the semi-final, and they are good enough. They've got some fantastic players now, and the country has had a lot of money poured into it, and of course they have the World Cup coming up in 4 years' time, sharing it with Spain and Portugal. Senegal, who we saw recently win the Copa, the AFCON, before they were disqualified for walking off the pitch when they beat Morocco. So Senegal will get some fantastic players, the likes of Mane and then Jai and Ismail Assar. I think they could do a lot of damage. And it's interesting that Senegal are in the same group as France. France with Senegal, Norway, another outlier really. One of the European teams with fantastic players like Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard, who you mentioned there, they're quite capable of beating France. So that's the group I'll be keeping an eye on, because I personally don't think France will win it. I think they're top of the betting, along with Spain, but I think France always have the capacity to implode because they have a lot of stars, and some of these teams they come up against are no mugs at all. I think that'll be interesting. But yeah, there are several teams really who could do that. I mean, Japan, Ecuador, Turkey, you mentioned, Norway, Colombia, Senegal, even Egypt. I was looking at their qualifying record. So the African nations, I wonder when it will happen. You're looking back decades. I can remember England playing against Cameroon way back in 1990, and nearly Cameroon got to the semi-finals back then. Ghana have been close to a semi-final before in South Africa in 2010. Maybe not this time for them, but that trend is moving. And Ivory Coast, another African nation. So keep an eye on them. And with conditions being hot and difficult, I think they might cause a bit of damage in this tournament.
Right. And teams such as Uzbekistan, Jordan, South Africa, and Cape Verde have been identified as potential dark horses. So among them, which of these nations has the right blend of talent, momentum, and belief to exceed expectations? Like you mentioned, the conditions will be a very important factor.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, listen, I don't think any of those teams will get through their groups. the teams you mentioned, the small ones, Curacao, Jordan, Cape Verde, Uzbekistan, they're all first timers in the World Cup, and it tends to be, if you have the teams that do well in World Cups tend to have been there before, have an idea of what it's like, and it'll be an incredible achievement for them, and the countries will come to a total standstill. I know that. The biggest thing that's ever happened to these places. Uzbekistan, for example, they've got 20 years ago, Italy won the World Cup with Fabio Cannavaro, who was a rock at the centre of their defence, one of the best players in the world, and he is now the coach of Uzbekistan, fairly recently put in place, but it'll be interesting to see what he can do to them. They've got some good players as well. Don't forget, a lot of these players play in leagues, big pro leagues around the world, and a lot of the players go under the radar a little bit. But when you put them together with that national pride,
yes,
they can do it. But I suspect that all of those 4 teams will fail to get through. But it's not about that. It's just about them enjoying themselves and getting the experience for the next time.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for highlighting that. And please do stay with us as we'll come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, as teams put the finishing touches on their preparations ahead of the tournament, several football heavyweights ended their warm-up campaigns on a winning note. Argentina, Brazil, Belgium, and Portugal all secured important victories, boosting confidence before the competition gets underway. Argentina delivered one of the standout performances, defeating Iceland 3-1 in a commanding display. Captain Lionel Messi was on target from the penalty spot, while Argentina's attack looked sharp and well organized throughout the match. Brazil also impressed with a convincing victory, while Belgium and Portugal showcased their strength and depth with solid performances of their own. The results provide a timely morale boost for the tournament favorites as coaches make their final assessments and players look to carry this momentum into the competition. With preparations now complete, attention turns to the opening fixtures and the battle for football's biggest prize. Now we welcome back Mr. Chris Scudder. Thank you very much, Mr. Scudder, for staying with us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Now the final round of warm-up matches is complete, and heavyweights like Argentina, Brazil, Portugal, Belgium all secured important victories. So how much can we really read into these results and just days before the World Cup begins?
I would say not too much, really. It's just a question of acclimatizing for the teams. Don't forget, they've all finished. I mean, a lot of the top players play in Europe, and they've just finished now at end of May, beginning of June. The season is over. The players go back, join their clubs or their national teams, and then they have a get-together and play a couple of matches to get to know each other again, and again an idea of the climatic conditions as to where they're going. That's basically it. I mean, I wouldn't look at any of the results and say there's something you can learn from them, because when competitive football starts, it's very, very different, and the players know that, and you'll see something very, very different, particularly when the knockout stages starts, which is going to be a couple of weeks yet. But once because there's so many teams going through from the groups, I personally think that it'll be a slow start, and the heat and teams will do just enough to get through. Obviously, the big ones will want to win their group because it gives you an advantage about who you play next. But once they've done that, then it really gets going. When the big ones, you start seeing the matchups with the big teams.
And now focusing on Argentina. Argentina's 3-2 win over Iceland was highlighted by Lionel Messi coming off the bench to score. So does that performance reinforce their status as one of the tournament favorites, and how important will Messi be to their title defense?
Well, depends who you speak to, but he is without a doubt one of the 3 greatest players that ever kicked a soccer ball, football. But he's 39 now. I think many people felt that he was just outside of the argument of the greatest player of all time when I would mention Pelé and Diego Maradona, and then Messi would be there. Messi, at the age of 35, dominated the last World Cup. He had played all the big moments in it, and in my opinion, without him, Argentina would not have won the World Cup. So He's got the pressure off now. He's moved to play soccer in the USA with Miami. The level is not quite as good there as it is in the big European leagues, etc., etc. So it's a nostalgic thing. I personally think that the inclusion of Messi, not so much Messi, but Ronaldo. So Messi's 39 now, will be in a couple of weeks, 39. Ronaldo 41. And Neymar as well of Brazil. Those are three players who have been brought in as a kind of talismanic figures, but they're all past their best, and I'm not sure that's a good thing for those teams. So while a lot of people would love to see Messi win it again, I really don't think it'll happen. I don't think he's got the influence that he once had, even though he is, you know, one of the all-time greats without a doubt, and without the Messi of 4 years ago, I don't think Argentina have got enough to challenge some of the others. They will be in the argument in the last week, I think, but I'm not sure they'll go all the way, and Messi will have to contend with 6 World Cup appearances and his status as one of the all-time greats.
Yes, thank you very much for that timely insight. And now history has shown that strong warm-up performances do not always, like you also said, do not always translate into World Cup success. So which team looked convincing in preparations but still has major questions to answer once the tournament gets underway?
Well, I think any of the big teams really. I think that the big talking points before this World Cup have been the players who have been left out. A lot of the larger nations have got so many choices. I'm speaking to you from England, where there's been a huge discussion, huge arguments about who should have gone, and that the coach got it wrong, and England should do this and should do that. It's the same in Brazil as well. For example, they've taken Neymar, who I think is past his best, and they didn't take someone like João Pedro, who was excellent at the Club World Cup last year with Chelsea. So these are the issues really that we all. It all feeds into the narrative of the building up and the expectation. But until the games actually start, and what generally happens at World Cups is we all laud the great stars, and I mentioned Messi, but it's generally the best team that does the job. So you can have as many stars as you want, and this is where I think France might fall down this time. That you look at their squad on paper and you think, wow, it used to be the same with England. It looks great on paper, but when they actually play together, it doesn't quite work out as well, and you get egos and all that kind of thing, and there's potential for problems. So whichever team has the best ethos and togetherness, and that's when you're playing the warm-up games, you want to show that. I thought England showed it last night against Costa Rica. In the past, it's really cost them. They've had individuals and never been together enough. So yeah, whichever, Portugal, again, look at their team. It looks fantastic on paper. Is it a team, or have they got a few individuals there? Not sure about that. Spain are a team, I think. But one or two of their players, like Rodri, who's at Man City, maybe not what he was. So it's open, I think, and whichever team shows the most togetherness when it really matters and when the heat is on, physically and metaphorically, we'll see who's going to be the champion team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scooter, for sharing that insight and joining us on NewsX World today. You have convinced me to watch France. Thank you. Well, now tracking last but not least, Haiti have been forced to modify their World Cup jerseys just days before their tournament opener after FIFA ruled part of the design breached equipment regulations. The original shirts featured an illustration of the Battle of the Bertieres, the 1803 conflict that secured Haiti's independence from French rule. FIFA determined the historic artwork could be interpreted as a political message, which is prohibited under its rules governing teams' kits. Kit manufacturer Saeta has insisted the design was meant as a tribute to Haitian history. culture and resilience, not a political statement. Following FIFA's request, the design was quickly altered to ensure compliance ahead of the tournament. The change comes just days before Haiti begins their first World Cup campaign in 52 years, with their opening match against Scotland. Despite the late kit controversy, the team hopes its remarkable journey to the World Cup will inspire fans back home. And that's all in today's special coverage of the FIFA World Cup 2026 on the World of Sports. Thank you for watching.
The world's biggest sporting spectacular is finally here. From breathtaking goals to unforgettable drama. Get closer to every match, every story, and every turning point in this tournament. Catch the latest updates, expert analysis, and match highlights here on NewsX World.